A little girl asked a stranger to fix her toy. She had no idea who he really was. The little girl didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just stood there, holding a broken teddy bear, and said something that froze the entire cafe. "Sir, can you fix him? He's the last thing my dad ever gave me." Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tunning in from? And if you believe that stories of kindness, everyday miracles, and ordinary people deserve to be shared even further, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any journey like this one. The cafe went dead quiet. No clinking cups, no background chatter. Even the soft jazz felt like it backed off out of respect. The man she was talking to looked completely out of place for a moment, like reality had just slapped him awake. Elliot Parker, tech billionaire, CEO, the guy whose face floated across business magazines and financial podcasts like he belonged to a different universe. Yet here he was, sitting alone at his usual corner table, black coffee untouched, rain streaking down the window beside him like the city itself was sighing. He came here every Saturday. Same time, same seat, same silence. No assistants, no phone calls, no flexing his money, just a man hiding from his own life. Then this kid showed up. She couldn't have been more than 4. Oversized coat swallowing her arms. Pink sneakers scraped to hell. Blonde curls bouncing as she hugged that worn-out teddy like it was breathing. The bear's ear hung by a few sad threads. Elliot blinked, genuinely caught off guard. His voice felt rusty. "I'm not really good with toys." The girl tilted her head. "Mom says if something has love in it, you don't throw it away." She paused, then added quietly, "Dad would be mad if I did." That hit harder than any boardroom fight ever had. Before Elliot could respond, a woman rushed over, breath slightly uneven. "Mia, sweetheart, I'm so sorry," she said, turning to Elliot. "She must have wandered off. I hope she didn't bother you." "No," Elliot said slowly. "She didn't." The woman looked tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. Early 30s maybe. No makeup, no flash, just steady eyes and a calm strength that told you life hadn't been easy and she survived anyway. "I'm Hannah," she said softly. "Mia," the girl announced proudly, tightening her grip on the bear. "And this is Benny." Elliot crouched down without thinking. He studied the torn ear, the worn fabric, the love stitched into every rip. He'd built million-dollar systems, fixed impossible problems, but this, he swallowed. "I can try." Mia's eyes lit up, not wild excitement, but quiet hope. The dangerous kind, the kind you don't want to disappoint. "I'll take good care of him," Elliot said. "I'll bring him back next week." Hannah looked stunned. "You really don't have to." "I want to," he replied. As Elliot walked out into the gray afternoon, Bear tucked carefully under his arm, something shifted inside him. For the first time in years, he wasn't walking away from something. He was carrying it with him. And he had no idea that fixing a child's broken toy was about to crack open everything he'd spent a lifetime locking down. That night, as Elliot threaded the needle through the torn teddy bear, a memory surfaced, one he hadn't thought about in decades. A gift from his own father. And the reason their relationship shattered forever. The needle slipped. Elliot hissed under his breath as a tiny bead of blood bloomed on his fingertip. He stared at it like it personally offended him. Billion-dollar deals, no problem. All-nighters coding complex systems, easy. but sewing a teddy bear's ear back on. Yeah, life had jokes. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. His apartment was silent, too silent. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city glowing below, all glass and steel and ambition. This place was supposed to feel like winning. Instead, it felt like an expensive waiting room. The teddy bear sat on the table under a warm lamp, one ear half attached, stuffing peeking out like a secret. Elliot rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, and went back in. "All right, Benny," he muttered. "Let's not mess this up." As he stitched carefully, his mind drifted, which annoyed him. He hated drifting. But the bear's worn fabric, the way Mia held it like it was sacred, it unlocked something buried deep. A memory he didn't invite. He was 10 years old again, sitting stiff at the dining table, his father across from him. Colonel James Parker, straight back. No nonsense. No small talk. Love in that house came in the form of rules. That birthday, his dad didn't hug him, didn't smile much either. He slid a plain box across the table. "Don't break it," he'd said. Inside was a model airplane, military grade, sharp edges, perfect lines. Elliot remembered holding it like glass, remembered thinking it was the coolest thing he'd ever owned. He also remembered losing it years later during a move and never mentioning it again. He tightened the stitch. Why hadn't he told his father it mattered? Why did he only realize things mattered when it was already too late? The last stitch pulled tight, the ear held. It wasn't pretty, uneven, slightly crooked, but solid, real. Elliot stared at the bear longer than necessary. "Guess you're tougher than you look," he said quietly. That night, sleep didn't come easy. His phone buzzed nonstop with emails, alerts, people who needed him. For once, he ignored all of it. Saturday came fast. At exactly 4 p.m., Elliot walked back into the cafe holding a paper bag like it was fragile cargo. Same table, same window, different energy. When the door chimed, Mia spotted him instantly. "Benny," she yelled, bolting across the cafe like a tiny missile. Hannah barely had time to apologize before Mia reached him. Elliot knelt and handed over the bag. Mia pulled the bear out slowly, very seriously, like this was a ceremony. His ear was back. Her eyes went wide. "You fixed him," she whispered. She hugged Benny tight, then hugged Elliot just as hard. Elliot froze, then awkwardly hugged back. Hannah's eyes shimmered. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to do all that." "It wasn't a big deal," Elliot replied. "It was a lie." From that day on, Saturdays changed. Coffee turned into conversations. Conversations turned into laughs. Mia colored while Elliot and Hannah talked about everything and nothing: jobs, books, life. Hannah worked 3 jobs, never complained, never asked for help. And Elliot found himself waiting for Saturdays like a kid waiting for summer break. But not everyone was happy about it. 3 days later, Elliot's phone lit up with a message he hadn't seen in months. "Dad, we need to talk." Elliot stared at the screen. Something told him this wasn't about coffee. Elliot didn't know it yet, but his father had already made a move. And Hannah was about to be dragged into a war she never signed up for. Elliot didn't respond to the message right away. He stared at his phone like it might blink first. "We need to talk." That sentence had haunted him his entire life. It usually meant disappointment, or control, or another lecture dressed up as concern. He slid the phone into his pocket and tried to shake it off. That Saturday, the cafe felt warmer. Sunlight cut through the windows, dust floating in the air like lazy fireflies. Mia was already at the table, coloring furiously. "Look," she said, holding up a picture. 3 stick figures, one tall, one small, one with long hair. "That's me, Mom, and you." Elliot blinked. "Me?" Mia nodded like it was obvious. "You drink coffee with us." Hannah laughed, a little embarrassed. "She assigns roles fast." Elliot smiled, but something heavy settled in his chest. He didn't want to be something temporary. He didn't want to disappear from this kid's life like so many adults probably already had. Later that afternoon, while Mia was distracted with her bear, Hannah leaned closer. "You've been quiet today." "My dad texted," Elliot admitted. Hannah didn't push. She never did. She just nodded like she understood silence better than most. That evening, Elliot stood in front of his father's estate, all iron gates and stone walls. The kind of place that screamed legacy, power, distance. Colonel Parker opened the door himself. "You've been spending time with a woman," his father said flatly, skipping every form of greeting. Elliot crossed his arms. "Her name is Hannah, and the child, her daughter," his father's jaw tightened. "This is a distraction." "No," Elliot said calmly, "it's my life." The colonel stepped closer. "You're a Parker. You don't attach yourself to complications." Something in Elliot snapped, not loudly, but permanently. "I'm done living like I owe you obedience," he said. "I didn't build my life to be approved by you." The colonel's eyes hardened. "You're making a mistake." Elliot turned and walked out. 2 days later, Hannah finished her shift and stepped outside, and a black car pulled up beside her. 2 men in suits, polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Miss Hannah," one said, "we represent a concerned family." They handed her an envelope. Inside was more money than she'd ever seen. "We suggest you step away from Mr. Parker, quietly." Hannah closed the envelope and handed it back. "I don't want his money," she said evenly. "I want my daughter safe." That night, rain poured hard. Hannah was walking to pick up Mia when the same car appeared again. This time, no smiles. A hand grabbed her arm. "Let go," she snapped. Then a voice cut through the rain like a blade. "Touch her again and you'll regret breathing." Elliot stood there, soaked, furious, unshaken. The men backed off fast. Elliot wrapped his jacket around Hannah's shoulders. "I should have told you about my father." "No," she said quietly. "He should have stayed out of your life." Elliot knew then there was no going back. The next morning, Elliot made a decision that would cost him his name, his inheritance, and everything he'd ever been taught to value. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. It clung to the city like it was holding a grudge, dripping from rooftops, streaking the sidewalks, soaking everything that didn't move fast enough. Elliot stood outside his father's estate again, water seeping into his shoes, jaw locked tight. This time he didn't hesitate. The door opened, and Colonel Parker looked exactly the same as always, sharp, controlled, unreadable. Like emotions were optional software he'd never installed. "You sent men after her," Elliot said. "No greeting, no warm-up." "I sent them to talk," his father replied coolly. "They grabbed her." Silence. That was all the confirmation Elliot needed. "She's manipulating you," the colonel said. "She knows what you're worth." Elliot laughed, a short, humorless sound. "That's the thing, she doesn't care." His father's voice dropped. "You're throwing away a legacy for a woman and a child that aren't yours." "They are," Elliot snapped. "Because I choose them." The words hung heavy. "I don't need your money," Elliot continued, voice shaking just enough to be honest. "I don't need your approval. I spent my whole life trying to be enough for you, and it was never gonna happen." The colonel stared at him, stone-faced. "If being your son means being cold and alone," Elliot said quietly, "then I'm done being your son." He turned and walked away. For the first time in his life, he didn't look back. Hannah didn't sleep that night. Mia lay curled beside her, hugging Benny close, breathing slow and steady. Hannah stared at the ceiling, heart racing. Elliot had stepped into her chaos without hesitation, and she hated that it cost him so much. She whispered into the dark, "I don't want to ruin him." Morning came gray and still. A knock at the door. Elliot stood there, tired but steady. "I walked away," he said simply. Hannah swallowed. "From everything." "Yes." She searched his face, terrified. "I don't want to be the reason you lose your life." Elliot stepped closer. "That life was empty. I'm not asking you to fit into it. I want to build something new." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," he said softly, "but I'm sure." She took his hand. "I'm here," she said. And just like that, the fear loosened its grip. 2 weeks later, the boardroom was silent. "I'm stepping down," Elliot said, calm as hell, gasps, whispers. "I know what I'm giving up," he continued. "And I know what I'm choosing." He walked out without regret. That night the apartment smelled like soup and grilled cheese. Not fancy, not perfect, just real. Mia ran to him. "You're home," he smiled. "Home. Yeah, that sounded right." Elliot thought the hardest part was over. He was wrong. Because someone from his past was about to show up and change everything one last time. The knock came soft, not urgent, not aggressive, just careful. Elliot froze mid-step. Hannah looked up from the sink, concern flickering across her face. Mia was on the floor, coloring Benny's shirt purple for the 3rd time. "I'll get it," Elliot said. When he opened the door, his chest tightened. His father stood in the hallway, not in uniform, not sharp. No ironed authority. Just an older man in a plain gray coat, shoulders slightly stooped, rain clinging to the fabric like he'd been standing there longer than he wanted to admit. "May I come in?" Colonel Parker asked. Elliot hesitated, then stepped aside. They sat across from each other in silence. The apartment felt smaller with his father in it, like old rules were trying to reclaim space. "I heard you resigned," his father finally said. "I did." "You walked away from everything I built for you." Elliot met his gaze. "You built it for yourself." That landed. His father exhaled slowly. "I didn't know how to love you any other way." For the first time, Elliot heard something unfamiliar in his voice. Regret. Before either of them could say more, Mia peeked around the corner. "Mom," she whispered loudly, "there's a serious grandpa here." Hannah bit back a smile. The colonel looked at Mia, really looked, and something in his expression cracked. "She's polite," he said awkwardly. "She's honest," Elliot replied. The colonel stood, pulled something from his coat pocket and set it on the table, a small wooden box. "I kept this," he said, "didn't know why." Inside was a model airplane. Elliot's breath caught. Same markings, same chipped wing. "I didn't say it right," his father continued, "but I was proud." Silence stretched, not heavy this time, just real. Then the colonel nodded once and left. Weeks passed. Life settled into something warm. Simple dinners, park days, laughter. One afternoon, Mia handed Elliot a drawing. 3 figures, hand in hand. Above it, written crookedly, family. Hannah watched him carefully. "You okay?" she asked. Elliot smiled, eyes shining. "Yeah, I finally am." Spring turned into summer. The backyard wedding was small, string lights, folding chairs, quiet joy. Mia walked between them, beaming. As vows were spoken, Elliot spotted someone at the back, his father, watching, nodding once. When Mia tugged his hand and whispered, "Now you have 2 girls forever," Elliot broke. Tears came easy, not from pain, from peace. Elliot thought happiness was loud, success, power, legacy. But he was about to learn the truth. Real happiness is quiet, and it lasts. Happiness didn't explode into Elliot's life. It settled in. Quiet mornings, burnt toast, Mia stealing his socks because they looked comfier on me. Hannah humming while folding laundry like the world hadn't tried to break her 100 times already. This was the stuff no one put on magazine covers. And somehow, it scared him more than failure ever had. One evening, after Mia fell asleep on the couch with Benny tucked under her chin, Elliot sat on the floor staring at the old wooden airplane box his father had left behind. He hadn't opened it again since that night. "What if this doesn't last?" he asked suddenly. Hannah looked over from the armchair. "What? What if I mess this up?" he said. "I've ruined things before. I don't want to be the guy who walks out. Or worse, the guy who stays but isn't really there." Hannah didn't answer right away. She moved closer, sat beside him. "Look at me," she said. He did. "You already showed up," she continued. "When it mattered, when it was hard. That's the part most people fail at." He exhaled, shoulders dropping. The next morning, reality punched back. A headline went viral. "Former tech CEO abandons Empire 4 mystery woman comments were ruthless. Gold digger. Midlife crisis. Fake humility." Hannah saw it before Elliot could stop her. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "This is my mess." She closed the phone calmly. "I've been judged my whole life, Elliot. This is just louder." But Mia wasn't as protected. At school, another kid sneered, "My mom says your new dad ditched his family." Mia came home quiet. That night, Elliot knelt in front of her. "Hey, you want to tell me what happened?" She hesitated. "Are you gonna leave?" That question wrecked him. He pulled her into his chest. "No, not today, not ever. I choose you." She nodded like she needed to hear it twice. Days later, Elliot made another move, one no one expected. He opened a small community tech center downtown. Free classes, old laptops, no branding, no ego. When reporters asked why, he shrugged. "Because someone once believed in me when I didn't." Hannah watched him teach a room full of kids who reminded her of Mia, and she knew. This man wasn't running away from power. He was redefining it. That night, as they sat on the balcony watching city lights flicker, Hannah spoke softly. "There's something I need to tell you." Elliot's stomach tightened. "Okay." "I almost walked away," she admitted. "The night before you showed up. I was scared I'd ruin you." "And?" she smiled. "Then I realized you weren't being ruined, you were becoming." Elliot took her hand. Down the hall, Mia laughed in her sleep. For once, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt open. Just when Elliot thought he'd finally outrun his past, a phone call came in that threatened to tear everything apart again. The phone rang at 2:17 a.m. Elliot woke up instantly, old habits from a life where bad news never waited for daylight. Hannah stirred beside him, mumbling something half asleep. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Something in his gut twisted. He stepped into the hallway and answered. "Hello." There was a pause, then a voice clipped and official. "Mr. Parker, this is St. Vincent's Hospital. Your father has been admitted." The world tilted. "What happened?" Elliot asked, already pulling on his jacket. "Heart attack. He's stable, but you should come." The line went dead. Hannah appeared behind him, eyes wide. "What is it?" "My dad," Elliot said quietly. "I need to go." She didn't hesitate. "I'll wake Mia. We're coming." The hospital smelled like antiseptic and memories Elliot didn't want. Machines beeped softly as they were led into a dim room. Colonel Parker lay there, smaller than Elliot remembered, pale, vulnerable, the Iron Man reduced to wires and shallow breaths. For a long moment, Elliot just stood there. Then his father opened his eyes. "You came," the colonel whispered. Elliot swallowed. "Of course I did." Silence stretched. "I was wrong," his father said suddenly, "about a lot of things." Elliot didn't rush him. "I thought strength meant control," the colonel continued. "But all I built was distance." Elliot stepped closer. "You taught me discipline, you just forgot the warmth." A weak smile touched the old man's lips. Then Mia tugged Elliot's sleeve. "Sir," she said softly, "are you Elliot's dad?" The colonel nodded faintly. She held up Benny. "This bear got fixed when he was broken. People can too." The room went still. Tears slid down the colonel's cheek. "I wish I'd known that sooner," he whispered. Weeks passed. The colonel recovered slowly. Physical therapy, short walks, less pride. One afternoon, he showed up at the community center Elliot ran. He didn't speak much, just watched. Finally, he said, "You built something better than I ever did." Elliot looked at him. "You still helped shape me." That was the closest thing to peace they'd ever shared. That evening, as they drove home, Hannah reached for Elliot's hand. "You okay?" He nodded. "Yeah. I think I finally closed that chapter." But fate wasn't done yet. When they arrived home, a legal envelope waited on the doorstep. Elliot opened it. Inside was a document stamped in bold letters. "Estate revision notice." Hannah's heart skipped. "What does that mean?" Elliot stared at the page. "It means," he said slowly, "my father changed everything." The inheritance Elliot walked away from was about to come back in a way none of them expected. Elliot didn't open the envelope right away. He set it on the kitchen counter like it might explode if he looked at it too hard. Hannah noticed his hesitation immediately. "You don't have to read it tonight," she said gently. "I do," he replied, "because whatever's in there, it's already here." Mia climbed onto a chair, swinging her legs. "Is it bad mail or boring mail?" Elliot smiled despite himself. "Probably grown-up boring mail." She nodded seriously. "Those are the worst." He opened it. The letter was short, clean, legal, cold in the way only lawyers could manage. Colonel James Parker had revised his estate. The majority of his assets were being placed into a trust, but not for Elliot. For Mia and the community center. Hannah's breath caught. "He did what?" Elliot read it twice, like his brain refused to accept it the first time. "It says the money can't be used for luxury," he said slowly. "Only education, housing stability, and nonprofit work. and Mia doesn't get access until adulthood. Mia frowned. What's a non-profit? Elliot crouched in front of her. It means helping people without getting rich from it. She smiled. That sounds nice. Hannah sat down hard in the chair. I don't know how to feel about this. Me neither, Elliot admitted. But I think this was his way of saying sorry without knowing how to say the words. The colonel passed away 3 months later. No dramatic scene. No final speech. Just a quiet end in his sleep. At the funeral, Elliot stood beside Hannah and Mia under a gray sky. There were medals, speeches, formal salutes, but what mattered most was the small folded note handed to Elliot afterward. I learned too late. Don't make my mistake. Elliot closed his eyes. I won't, he whispered. Life changed again, but gently this time. The community center expanded, more kids, more laughter, more chances. Mia started calling it Grandpa's Place. One afternoon she asked, "Do you think Grandpa's proud now?" Elliot knelt beside her. "I know he is." Hannah watched them, heart full. That evening after Mia fell asleep, Hannah spoke quietly. "I need to ask you something and you can say no." Elliot looked up. "Okay. Would you adopt her?" The word hung in the air. Elliot's throat tightened. "Are you sure?" Hannah nodded. "She already sees you as her dad. I just want it to be official." Elliot didn't answer with words. He nodded once. Tears came fast, quiet, real. They held each other in the dim light, knowing life would never be easy, but it would be honest. The day Elliot became Mia's father on paper was the same day the past came knocking one last time. The courthouse smelled like old paper and floor cleaner. Elliot sat stiff on the wooden bench, tie crooked, palms sweaty, which was ridiculous considering he'd pitched ideas worth billions without blinking. Hannah squeezed his hand, grounding him. Mia sat between them, feet not touching the floor, swinging like this was the coolest day ever. "Do I still get snacks after?" Mia whispered. Elliot leaned down. "Absolutely. This is a big deal snack day," she grinned. "Then I'm ready." The judge smiled when they were called forward. It took less than 10 minutes, a few signatures, a few questions, and then, "Congratulations," the judge said warmly. "You're officially a family." Elliot felt it hit him all at once. Family, not inherited, not demanded, chosen. Mia wrapped her arms around his neck. "You're my dad now forever." "Yeah," Elliot said, voice thick. "Forever." They were still floating when they stepped outside. That's when Elliot saw the man waiting across the street. Tall, familiar, sharp suit, one of his former board members. "Elliot," the man called. "We need to talk." Elliot's smile faded. The offer was tempting, too tempting. A new company, clean slate, huge funding, no public baggage. "All you have to do," the man said carefully, "is step back into the spotlight, full commitment, no distractions." His eyes flicked to Hannah. To Mia, Elliot didn't hesitate. "No," the man blinked. "You didn't even hear the numbers." "I already know the cost," Elliot replied. They walked away. Hannah looked up at him. "Any regrets?" He shook his head. "Not even a little." Weeks later, their backyard filled with soft lights and quiet laughter. No press, no spectacle, just people who mattered. Mia walked between them, tossing flower petals like confetti. Hannah's voice trembled as she said her vows. Elliot's did too. When they kissed, Mia cheered the loudest. Later that night, after the guests left, Elliot sat alone on the steps. Mia padded out in her pajamas, dragging Benny by the arm. "You okay, Dad?" she asked. "Yeah," he said, "just thinking." She sat beside him. "Thinking makes you quiet," he smiled. "That obvious," she nodded. "But quiet doesn't mean sad." Elliot looked at her, heart full. "You're right." Elliot thought the story was over. He was wrong, because sometimes the smallest moment becomes the biggest ending. The moment didn't come with fireworks. No applause, no dramatic speech. Just a quiet knock on Elliot's heart when he least expected it. It was a Tuesday night. Rain tapping softly against the windows. Hannah was asleep on the couch, one arm draped over Elliot's chest, breathing slow and steady. The TV played some forgettable rerun neither of them was watching. Mia shuffled out of her room in fuzzy socks, half asleep, clutching Benny by one ear. "Dad," she whispered. Elliot instantly woke. "Hey, kiddo, what's up?" She climbed onto the couch and curled against him. "I had a dream you went away." His chest tightened. "But then," she continued, eyes half closed, "you came back and said you were never leaving." Elliot kissed the top of her head. "That wasn't a dream, that's real life." She smiled, already drifting off again. In that moment it hit him. This was it. Not the boardrooms, not the headlines, not the legacy his father obsessed over. This quiet weight of a child trusting him with her whole world. Weeks later, Elliot stood in the community center watching Mia help a younger kid fix a broken toy keyboard. "You don't throw it away," she said confidently. "You fix it." Elliot laughed softly. History didn't repeat itself. It healed. That evening they walked home together, streetlights glowing. Hannah slipped her hand into his. "You happy?" she asked. Elliot didn't answer right away. He looked at Mia skipping ahead, Benny tucked under her arm. He looked at Hannah, strong, tired, real. "I used to think happiness was loud," he finally said. "Turns out it's just honest." Hannah smiled. Behind them the city buzzed. Ahead of them home waited. And Elliot knew no matter how life twisted next, he'd already won. Because love, when chosen, beats legacy every time.